Hey, this is Tony from the Cold Case Project, where we focus on unsolved cases across the United States. Our mission is to bring attention to these unresolved mysteries that need your help. All the information we cover in these cases is readily available on the internet, but we rewrite and repurpose it for the purpose of these videos. Our goal is to spread the word about the thousands of unsolved cold cases still out there. Thank you for watching. If you want to help shed light on these cases, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Your support can make a difference.
Joanne Williams was born on November 29, 1956, and grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. She was close to her family, particularly her aunt and uncle, who lived nearby. 10 months after Joanne's birth, her aunt and uncle had a daughter, Audrey, who became Joanne's best friend. Joanne and Audrey were inseparable, more like sisters than cousins. When Audrey's younger brother, Andy, was born, Joanne treated him like her own little brother, and he looked up to both his older sisters. Those who knew Joanne described her as intensely private and quiet. However, Audrey said that Joanne would open up and share freely with those she was close to. It seems she maintained a small circle of close friends throughout her youth and in the years after she graduated from Scranton High School in 1974. Joanne preferred serious poses in photographs, and consequently, there are few pictures of her smiling. While living with her parents, she had a boyfriend, a job, and was working toward independence. She remained close with her family, whom she loved deeply. Toward the end of 1978, those around Joanne began to notice a change in her. The usually shy and diminutive young woman became more outgoing. She started meeting with co-workers from Mallard Sportswear, where she worked as a button sewer at the Waldorf Hotel for drinks. A bartender at the Waldorf observed that as autumn turned to winter, Joanne became more outgoing and friendly. At the end of November, Joanne celebrated her 22nd birthday. With the holidays approaching, she looked forward to spending time with her family. On December 7, 1978, Joanne worked a shift at Mallard Sportswear. After work, she stopped to fill the tank of her 1977 Datsun 200SX, a red car with white racing stripes. It's unclear exactly what time she arrived home, but around 5:30 p.m., Audrey reported having a brief conversation with Joanne. Audrey described the conversation as small talk and said nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Around 2 hours later, Joanne left her residence at 500 block of East Gibson Street in Scranton, Pennsylvania. The exact details of the following events are somewhat unclear, with conflicting reports. Most articles and police reports state that Joanne left her home to attend a gymnastics class in the Clark Summit area. However, Audrey disputes this, stating that Joanne had been taking private dance lessons at a woman's home on Layden Road in nearby Chinchilla. There are also conflicting reports about the time Joanne left her home. The Times-Tribune reported on December 17, 1978, that Joanne had left her home at 7:40 p.m. Years later, the Tribune reported that she had left for her dance class at 7:20 p.m. Despite the 20-minute difference in the reported time, both articles claimed that 40 minutes later, Joanne called a friend to let her know she wouldn't be able to drive her to dance, as she had plans with her boyfriend immediately after class to meet at her house and drive to nearby Old Forge for pizza. She apologized, said goodbye, and disappeared into the night. At 10 p.m., Joanne's boyfriend arrived at her house for their date. William, Joanne's father, informed him that Joanne hadn't returned from dance. Neither had seen or heard from her since earlier in the day. Joanne was known to be extremely punctual, and both men found her absence very concerning. The two men waited until midnight before William called the police to report his daughter missing. The police quickly learned that the phone call Joanne had made to her friend was the last contact anyone had with her, and that she never made it to her dance lesson. Those close to her did not believe she would run off without telling anyone. As law enforcement investigated, Joanne's family refused to accept the possibility that she had left of her own volition. 8 days later, they found a significant piece of evidence to support their belief. On Friday, December 15th, Joanne's red Datsun was found 2 miles from her home, on the wrong side of Everett Avenue, near the intersection with Lafayette Street. Newspaper accounts claim that the car was found either by a family friend or by William Williams himself. It was unlocked, and the keys were nowhere to be found. This was concerning, as Joanne had no known friends or connections to the area where the car was found, which was reportedly a rough or sketchy part of town. Joanne's purse, containing money, her eyeglasses, a set of contact lenses, and the case for the contacts she had been wearing was found behind the driver's seat. Audrey later told reporters that Joanne would always put her purse behind the driver's seat, which was normal for her. However, under these circumstances, it raised new questions. Elsewhere in her car were her bank books, a checkbook, over a dozen cassette tapes, and a tape deck still in the dashboard. There are conflicting reports about a pair of brown gloves Joanne had left her house wearing. Some articles claim the gloves were found draped over the shifter, while others claim they were never found and include the gloves in the description of what she was last known to be wearing. The discovery of Joanne's car brought her disappearance into a stark new light. Police determined that only a few pints of gasoline had been consumed since Joanne filled up her tank after work on the 7th, and that the car had likely only been driven 2 to 3 miles afterward. Because of this and other evidence, police believe Joanne's car had been parked along Everett Avenue for days, possibly since the night of her disappearance. However, Audrey and others have difficulty accepting this. There were many items in the car that could have been easily stolen, and that often caught the eye of thieves. If Joanne's car had been abandoned and unlocked for as long as a week in this area, it seemed odd that the valuables within hadn't been stolen. William Williams reached out to the media for help, and the news showed a line on the strangest disappearance the city had ever seen. In the coming months and years, detectives, family, reporters, and friends worked to locate the missing 22-year-old. Newspapers reported that Joanne Williams, who was 5 feet 9 inches and weighed 115 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes, had disappeared on the night of Thursday, December 7th, 1978. When last seen, she was wearing a black leotard, blue jeans, a beige jacket, flat shoes, and possibly a pair of brown gloves. Years later, Audrey would call into question why Joanne was reported to have brown hair. In the time leading up to her disappearance, Joanne had been dyeing her hair blonde. A photograph of her taken near the time of her disappearance shows her with hair that is clearly lighter than brown. Shortly after the new year, a combination of law enforcement, Boy Scouts, and civilian volunteers began the first of many searches. A large-scale search of a wooded area near Cathedral Cemetery, close to where her car was found, was conducted, as well as a wide range of surrounding mountains with the help of the Civil Air Patrol. An area by North-South Road from Morgan Highway south to Cathedral Cemetery was searched, but no trace of Joanne was found. Many searches were forced to be called off due to severe winter weather. Sometime after Joanne's disappearance, William Williams moved out of the house at 513 East Gibson Street, while Joanne's mother, Christine, stayed. Details of the divorce have been difficult to track down. However, William never stopped searching for his daughter. He eventually moved to nearby Dunmore, remarried, and spent countless hours searching the forests and fields of Lackawanna County, determined to never give up. In the months following Joanne's disappearance, William suffered what his second wife, Susan, later told newspapers was a small heart attack. On January 23, 1981, William J. Williams died at Mercy Hospital. His brother, Robert Williams, told the Times-Tribune that William had undergone open-heart surgery and a blood clot formed and traveled to his heart. Robert, like his brother, wanted to believe that Joanne was still alive. He believed that if she were alive and able to reach out, her father's death would certainly cause her to at least call. However, hope dwindled as the funeral came and went, and Joanne's absence remained. Robert continued to hope that his niece was still out there. Years continued to pass with no movement, no news, no developments, and no Joanne. In 1985, nearly 7 years after the disappearance, detectives were desperate for any information that could help them find the missing 22-year-old. So desperate, in fact, that they publicly attempted to reach out to a self-proclaimed psychic who had garnered attention by consulting with law enforcement and making predictions on high-profile cases. Detective William Walsh acknowledged the skepticism many people had for psychics, but emphasized that he was desperate, willing to go to any length, talk to anyone, and use every resource available to find Joanne. The psychic had been featured in multiple magazine articles and appeared on national television, boasting of having located hundreds of bodies and missing persons and claiming to receive requests from 80 to 90 different agencies for consultations on cases every single day. However, Detective Walsh never received a reply. The case had been exhaustively worked for years in every way imaginable, but every investigative lead led to a dead end. The disappearance of Joanne Williams had become a cold case. She hadn't been forgotten, but investigators had done all they could and had come up empty. In 1989, everything changed. Just after midnight on Saturday, May 20th, 1989, Pennsylvania State Police arrested 44-year-old auto mechanic Frank O'Seleny of 1316 Vine Street and charged him with 5 counts of sexual assault against a child. The district attorney declined to comment specifically on the matter, as the victim was a minor, but the press learned the charges stemmed from multiple incidents beginning in 1982, when the victim was only 8 years old. At the time of his arrest, police served O'Seleny with a search warrant for hair and blood samples. Later that day, police publicly named Frank O'Seleny as the prime suspect in the rape and murder of 9-year-old Renee Waddle, whose body was found the previous week on an isolated private road near Lake Scranton. She had been badly beaten, doused with an accelerant, and set on fire. The day after the murder, O'Seleny's wife found what looked like a child's small purple clamshell earring lying on the floor of the auto body garage Frank owned. Witnesses saw her show it to Frank, who claimed he had no idea where it came from and that it must have come from a customer's child. She placed the earring on the desk of a secretary, who put it in the trash. As word of the little girl's murder spread, Mrs. O'Seleny remembered the earring. She retrieved it from the trash and discreetly gave it to a friend, telling her to take it to state police. Investigators contacted Mrs. O'Seleny shortly afterward, and she informed them of her suspicions about Frank. Already under investigation for the child molestation charges, police quickly took O'Seleny into custody. It turned out that on the last day of her life, Renee's stepfather had given her a pair of purple clamshell earrings. She had been wearing them when she was attacked, and her killer took one of her earrings before setting her body on fire. It was a crucial clue for the police. With Frank O'Seleny in custody, authorities began the long process of questioning him and those close to him. O'Seleny denied everything and claimed he had never seen Renee Waddle in his life. However, O'Seleny's criminal record revealed a history of assault stretching back to his teenage years. Investigators also noticed a number of more recent incidents and circumstances in which Frank seemed to be involved. In the early morning hours of December 11th, 1987, firefighters responded to what they believed to be a trash fire in the 400 block of Monroe Avenue. When they arrived, they discovered the body of 19-year-old University of Scranton student Laureen Finn. She, too, had been horribly beaten, doused with an accelerant, and set ablaze. The investigation into Laureen Finn's murder had not yielded many results. The coroner had been able to perform a rape kit on the body, which produced enough material to potentially generate a DNA profile of the killer. However, DNA science was still new, and even those tasked with storing and testing the samples were somewhat unaware of its potential and limitations. The DNA sample from Laureen Finn's body was discovered 18 months later in a desk drawer of the crime lab. It had never been tested and had not been properly stored. The sample had completely degraded and was unusable. The DNA avenue was closed to them. Forensic analysis was done on the accelerant used on Finn's body, and it was determined to be a combination of a specific type of Coleman lighter fluid and paint thinner. The same combination of fluids would later be found on Renee Waddle. The year before Laureen Finn's murder, on August 26, 1986, 11-year-old Michelle Jolene Leaky visited her mother at Mercy Hospital while she was recovering from surgery. After her visit, Michelle planned to walk to a friend's house to spend the night. She left on foot and was last seen walking on North Washington Street toward her home. There are unconfirmed reports that she may have been seen getting into a yellow car approximately a block from her home. She never arrived home, nor did she make it to her friend's house. She has never been seen again. Michelle was a regular 11-year-old girl who loved animals, especially puppies. She was known to visit a local mechanic whose German Shepherd had recently had puppies, and he let her stop by and play with them. Sometimes, if the mechanic saw her out walking, he would offer her a ride home. She called the mechanic Uncle Frank. The mechanic was Frank O'Seleny, owner and proprietor of Frank's Auto and Truck Service, located at 417 Walnut Street. Investigators were now looking at him in connection to Michelle Leaky's disappearance. They looked at old associates, old relationships, old vehicles, old addresses, and old arrests. They noticed how close many of the events had occurred to each other on a map. Renee Waddle's home, as well as the spot she had last been seen, were each a block from Frank's garage. Laureen Finn's body was found 2 blocks from Frank's home. Michelle Leaky knew Frank and saw him regularly. Looking at the intersections and how closely everything was located, investigators began to focus on the area around Gibson Street. Joanne Williams lived 2 blocks from where Laureen Finn's body was found, 4 blocks from where Michelle Leaky was last seen, and 3 blocks in either direction from Frank O'Seleny's garage or home. Further investigation revealed that her family had gone to Frank for auto work. 11 years later, investigators had finally identified a person of interest in the disappearance of Joanne Williams. However, everything went back to where it was before. Frank O'Seleny denied any involvement in the murders of Renee Waddle and Laureen Finn, as well as the disappearances of Michelle Jolene Leaky and Joanne Williams. He was formally charged with the rape and murder of Renee Waddle. A lengthy trial ensued, and he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison. In the cases of Finn, Leaky, and Williams, no charges were ever filed. The fact that O'Seleny was already convicted of one horrific murder, coupled with the lack of definitive evidence, likely played a role in this decision. The mishandling of the DNA evidence in the Finn homicide was a devastating blow to any potential identification of a suspect, let alone a successful prosecution. Investigators attempted to generate a DNA profile from a rape kit performed on Renee Waddle, and the lab received the sample and worked to process it, but were unable to generate a full profile. Despite these challenges, there was enough evidence at the crime scene and recovered from the O'Seleny home to effectively demonstrate his guilt in Renee Waddle's murder and secure a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. Frank O'Seleny died in prison in 2020. He maintained his innocence until the end. Michelle Jolene Leaky has never been found. Laureen Finn's murder remains unsolved. Joanne Williams was declared legally dead in 1991. Her case remains unsolved. Kenneth Williams Jr., a 29-year-old man, was last seen in Monica, Pennsylvania, on May 14, 2011. The events leading up to his disappearance paint a picture of a man in distress, adding a layer of complexity to this already perplexing case. The evening before his disappearance, Kenneth visited his sister in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. During this visit, his sister described him as being agitated about an encounter he had with someone. According to her account, Kenneth did not provide many details about the encounter, but he indicated that this person owed him something. When Kenneth asked about what he was owed, the person reportedly reacted defensively, as if he had been offended. Kenneth's sister believed that this encounter was significant and may have played a role in his subsequent disappearance. She gave him some food and was able to calm him down a bit. After visiting his sister, Kenneth went to visit their mother in Monica. While at his mother's house, he revealed that he had recently lost his job. He seemed upset and agitated. He left his mother's house in the early morning hours of May 14th. He was driving his cousin's car, a black 2005 Ford 500. The car he was driving is a crucial element in this case. A photo of a similar vehicle has been associated with the case. The Pennsylvania license plate number of the car was HMT 8956. This detail became essential when the car was later found abandoned. Kenneth Williams has not been seen or heard from since leaving his mother's house in the early morning hours of May 14th. The timeline of his disappearance is relatively short, but the circumstances surrounding it are filled with unanswered questions. A missing persons report was filed for Kenneth Williams on May 18th. The following day, a significant discovery was made. The black 2005 Ford 500 that Kenneth had been driving was found about 100 miles away from Monica. The car was located in Monongalia County, West Virginia. The car was found unlocked and abandoned on a logging road in a remote wooded area. The location of the car, far from Kenneth's home and in a secluded area, immediately raised concerns. It suggested that he had either driven there himself under unusual circumstances or that the car had been taken there by someone else. Law enforcement conducted an extensive search of the wooded area where the car was found. Cadaver dogs were brought in, and the area was searched for 3 days. However, the search yielded no results. There was no sign of Kenneth Williams in the vicinity of the abandoned car. The condition of the car itself provided some strange clues. According to his family, some things inside the car were out of place. The radio was tuned to a hip-hop station, which was unusual because Kenneth reportedly preferred classical music. This detail suggested that someone else had been in the car and had changed the radio station. Another strange detail was the position of the driver's seat. The driver's seat was pushed far forward, allegedly too far for someone of Kenneth's height, which was around 6 feet, to comfortably sit in the car. This indicated that someone much shorter than Kenneth had been driving the vehicle. Adding to the oddities, an empty milk carton was found in the car. This was particularly strange because Kenneth was reportedly lactose intolerant. The presence of milk in the car, especially given Kenneth's dietary restriction, was a detail that investigators found perplexing. The milk carton was, according to reports, not tested for DNA and was eventually thrown away. This decision has been questioned, as it could have potentially provided valuable evidence. The investigation into Kenneth Williams's disappearance also delved into his personal life. It came to light that Kenneth was a fan of gambling and often played poker games in private homes and backrooms. Authorities interviewed people that Kenneth had been known to play with. They found out that he did have a small gambling debt, but no one indicated that anyone had a significant problem with him or any reason to harm him. Kenneth Williams had a license to carry a .40 caliber handgun. However, this handgun has not been located. His wallet, the keys to the car, and his cellular phone were also missing. The absence of these personal items further complicated the investigation and raised questions about whether he had left voluntarily or had been taken against his will. Authorities stated that Kenneth was not involved in any criminal activities. He was also described as being very close to his family. Given these factors, investigators did not believe that he would have simply gotten up and left on his own. The lack of any digital footprint from his cell phone has also hindered the investigation. At the time of his disappearance, Kenneth Williams was described as an African-American man, standing between 6 feet and 6 feet 1 inch tall. He weighed between 140 and 160 pounds. He was last seen wearing a tan-printed t-shirt, a dark-colored long-sleeve flannel jacket, tan khaki pants, sneakers, and a black winter hat. He would be around 40 years old now. Kenneth Williams's case remains unsolved. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance, the abandoned car, and the strange clues found within it continue to baffle investigators. The case highlights the enduring mystery of unsolved disappearances and the pain and uncertainty they cause for families and communities. If you have any information regarding this disappearance, please reach out to Beaver County Crime Stoppers with your tip at 724-774-2000. Diane Wolf was a longtime employee of Hanover Foods, located on Route 116 in Hanover, Pennsylvania. She worked the third shift, a demanding schedule that required her to work through the night. Her dedication to her job was evident in her 20 years of service at the company. Notably, Diane's husband and mother also worked at Hanover Foods, but they were on the second shift, creating a family connection to the workplace and a shared experience within the company. On the morning of January 29, 1999, Diane Wolf departed from Hanover Foods at approximately 7 a.m., concluding her third shift. She returned to her family's residence on Sycamore Lane in Conewago Township, Pennsylvania, a place that should have offered the familiar comfort of home. However, what happened in the hours that followed remains a mystery. Upon arriving home, Diane left behind some personal items on the kitchen table. These items included her pink and white lunchbox, a simple reminder of her daily work routine, and several Avon products, perhaps indicating her personal interests or social activities. After leaving these items, Diane drove to the Allfirst Bank on Dart Drive in Hanover. A security camera at the Allfirst Bank captured a crucial piece of evidence: Diane Wolf making a $300 deposit at the drive-through ATM. This occurred at approximately 7:33 a.m. on January 29, 1999. This bank transaction provides a confirmed timeline of Diane's activities on the morning of her disappearance and establishes that she was alive and going about her day in the hours after leaving work. Diane Wolf had a regular routine. She typically filled her car's gas tank on Fridays, a practical task that ensured she was prepared for the weekend and the week ahead. She also had an appointment scheduled at a local tanning salon during the evening hours. This tanning salon appointment was a scheduled event that she never canceled. This detail is significant because it suggests that Diane had plans for the evening and did not intend to disappear or leave the area. Diane Wolf has never been heard from again. Her sudden and complete disappearance was highly unusual. She had been employed at Hanover Foods for 18 years prior to her disappearance and had never missed work without giving notice. This long and consistent work history further underscores the abnormality of her vanishing. The first major clue in Diane Wolf's disappearance came with a discovery made by her sister. Diane's sister was employed at Weiss Market on Baltimore Street in Hanover. On February 2, 1999, at approximately 6:50 a.m., she found Diane's turquoise 1994 Pontiac Grand Prix in the Weiss Market parking lot. The car had Pennsylvania license plate number WR 9396M. The discovery of the car was alarming for several reasons. The car was locked and abandoned, with no sign of Diane anywhere nearby. This suggested that she had not simply left her car there temporarily, but had left it under circumstances that remain unexplained. Adding to the mystery, another store employee reported that the vehicle had been parked in the Weiss Market lot since the previous morning. This meant that the car had been there for a significant period before Diane's sister found it, raising questions about why it was left there and what Diane had done in the interim. The condition and location of the car also presented a puzzle. Diane's dry cleaning was hanging from the interior hook, a seemingly ordinary detail that became significant in the context of her disappearance. The car's locks were frozen, indicating that it had been left there overnight in cold weather. The car was covered with dust, as if it had been driven on a dirt road or in a quarry. This detail was particularly perplexing and suggested that Diane may have traveled to an unusual location before her disappearance. Diane Wolf's loved ones provided further insight into her habits and personality. They stated that she normally searched for the closest possible parking space at any establishment. This was a consistent behavior that reflected her practical nature. However, her Grand Prix was parked on the outskirts of Weiss Market's lot, a location that was uncharacteristic of her. This deviation from her normal parking behavior raised serious questions about why she would park so far away from the store. The investigation into Diane Wolf's disappearance revealed other troubling details. There has been no activity on her credit cards since January 1999. This lack of financial activity suggests that she did not access her accounts after her disappearance, further supporting the theory that she did not leave voluntarily. Diane Wolf left all of her clothing behind at her residence. This is another significant detail that contradicts the idea that she planned to leave or go on a trip. If she had intended to be gone for an extended period, it would be reasonable to expect her to pack clothing. Her cellular phone, which she normally carried everywhere, was found in her car. This was highly unusual for Diane, according to her loved ones. The absence of her phone suggests that she may have been separated from it against her will, or that she did not intend to be away from it. The only item that was missing was Diane Wolf's purse. This missing purse became a central point of interest in the investigation. It raised the possibility that her disappearance was related to a robbery or some other type of encounter where her purse was taken. However, the lack of any other evidence of a struggle or a crime at the location where her car was found made this theory difficult to confirm, adding another layer of mystery to the case. A hotel card with a handwritten phone number on it was found on Diane Wolf's nightstand. When police tracked the number, they discovered it belonged to a man in Maryland. The man stated that the number was an old fax number that he no longer used. He claimed that he had never met Diane Wolf and had no idea why the number was in her bedroom. This strange and unexplained detail remains one of the most perplexing aspects of the case. The investigation also delved into Diane Wolf's personal life. She had met her husband through her job at Hanover Foods, and they had been married for 14 years. Her first husband had died prior to her marriage to her second husband. Her husband maintained that they had never had any serious problems in their marriage. However, the investigation revealed a more complex picture. Diane Wolf had reportedly had several extramarital affairs, including some that were with coworkers. One couple she had worked with had even threatened her. However, by the time of her disappearance, that couple had moved out of state. These revelations about Diane's personal life introduced the possibility that her disappearance could be related to a personal conflict or relationship gone wrong. In the aftermath of Diane Wolf's disappearance, there were two unconfirmed sightings of her. One sighting reportedly took place in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on Stratton Street, on the same morning that her car was discovered. Another sighting reportedly occurred near Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, in March 1999. However, these sightings were never confirmed and did not provide any concrete leads in the investigation. Diane Wolf's family members provided further insight into her state of mind prior to her disappearance. They said that she was looking forward to visiting her pregnant daughter during her 4 weeks of vacation from Hanover Foods. She was reportedly excited about becoming a grandmother. She had planned the baby shower and had even placed a baby crib on layaway. Her daughter, who lived out of state, was planning to move back home before the baby was born, and Diane was thrilled that they would be living nearer to each other. These details suggested that Diane had positive plans for the future and was looking forward to happy events in her life. Diane Wolf's mother provided information about an incident that occurred several days before her disappearance. She said that Diane was upset because she had not yet created a written will. Her mother calmed her down, and Diane appeared to be fine afterward. It is not known if this incident is related to her case, but it does suggest that Diane may have been experiencing some anxiety or concern about her personal affairs. Diane Wolf was declared legally dead in 2006, 7 years after she went missing. Her husband died in 2012. Police believe that she was a victim of foul play and that someone in the local area has knowledge of her disappearance. However, despite these beliefs and the years of investigation, her case remains unsolved. The disappearance of Diane Wolf is a haunting mystery that continues to baffle investigators and trouble her loved ones. The abandoned car, the missing purse, the conflicting details about her personal life, and a lack of any concrete evidence have made it difficult to determine what truly happened to her.